Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for inviting me to present today and for the opportunity to present remotely as well. I'm very sorry that I can't be here in person. Hopefully next time. I just heard from Yara that next year we'll be in North America, so look forward to meeting some of you in person then. I'm here as the introduction mentioned to talk about both DataCite and ROR, the research organization registry. And I don't always get a chance to do that. So that's very exciting, but it's also a lot to cover in 10 minutes. And I'm going to build a little bit on what you just heard from Dr. Hayashi and also from Joy in terms of this notion of persistent identifiers being the unsung heroes, and also Joy's notion of it's all connected. And I'm going to talk a little bit about both of those themes through the lens of DataCite and ROR. So speaking from my capacity as product director at DataCite and also as director of the research organization registry. And DataCite and ROR are two very distinct things, but also quite related and quite connected. So one primary reason why I'm talking about ROR is that DataCite is one of the organizations that operates ROR. ROR itself is not its own organization. It's an initiative that DataCite runs along with California Digital Library and Crossref. And so I'm just going to outline for everyone's benefit a few distinctions and synergies to help understand what I'm talking about today. DataCite, as many of you I think are familiar, is a global community of research organizations. And ROR is a global registry of identifiers for research organizations. DataCite provides infrastructure and services for registering DOIs for research outputs and activities, and for making DOI metadata openly available and discoverable. And ROR is a key piece of that as a key piece of metadata that is designed to identify organizations in DOI metadata and in many other components of research infrastructure, as we just saw in the previous presentations. And both DataCite and ROR have a lot in common in terms of their aims and objectives, in that they are both aiming to support research discovery and insights through open infrastructure, persistent identifiers, and metadata, and supporting overall objectives around open science and FAIR principles and community collaborations. So moving on to think about this from the lens of DataCite, as a community and as an infrastructure provider, DataCite's overarching strategic vision is about connecting research and advancing knowledge. And this is more than just a lofty idea. It's that our tools and services actually aim to make this possible. And these tools and services are powered by the metadata that we store and then make available and connectable to the world. So I'm just going to walk through an overview of the DataCite metadata journey to put it in more concrete terms. Research organizations that are members of DataCite contribute metadata to our system, registering a DOI for diverse types of outputs and activities that they are managing. DataCite stores that metadata and establishes connections across outputs and activities, and in some cases, other DOIs and identifiers elsewhere using persistent identifiers. The metadata is then made openly available through DataCite's APIs and data files and interfaces. And that means that metadata can be openly discovered and harvested and used by users and systems around the world to track and analyze outputs or integrate that information in other systems. And over time, you can start to understand how DataCite is accumulating a vast collection of information about various types of outputs and activities. Members are registering DOIs for all types of publications, data sets, specimens, samples, instruments, projects, awards, and so forth. And this means that this is a wealth of really valuable and rich information that many different research communities and infrastructure providers are interested in discovering and analyzing and integrating. And one concrete area of interest that has come up is in understanding and identifying which organizations are associated with specific outputs and activities, whether this is in a bioimaging context or in other broad research contexts. This is increasingly necessary and important to be able to precisely and comprehensively track and report on where research is taking place, who is supporting it, who is sponsoring it, what else is it connected to. And this is important not just for research organizations themselves, but also for other supporting entities like funders and facilities. And so DataCite members, when they register DOIs, they often provide institutional metadata in the form of text strings like these, and that's great, but on their own, these are not sufficient for precise and comprehensive and disambiguated analyses. For instance, if you're looking at the text strings here, how do you think these all represent the same university or distinct universities? And how can you tell? So ROR provides unique identifiers for institutions such as these that can be used for discovery and disambiguation. And then these IDs can be included in research metadata, resulting in more precise queries and analyses. So to answer the question, these are all distinct entities, and these are the distinct ROR IDs as in the registry that we maintain. So if you're providing metadata to DataCite, many of you may be, or if you're just interested in querying or integrating DataCite metadata and you want to include a search for ROR IDs, I just want to briefly walk through the 3 different ways in which ROR IDs are supported in DataCite. Number 1, they can be provided to identify contributor and creator affiliations, whether this is at the individual or organizational level. Number 2, they can be used to identify funders and connect these funders to outputs or to awards. And number 3, they could be used to identify the entity responsible for publishing or distributing or otherwise disseminating a resource, which could be organization level, distributor, or an infrastructure provider. And so I'm just going to walk through a few examples of what that looks like under the hood, showing examples from DataCite metadata store. This is an example of affiliation metadata. I'm sure it's probably difficult to see on the screen, but just showing how ROR IDs can be integrated into the context of DataCite metadata for contributor and creator affiliations. We have examples here of ROR IDs being used in the context of funding and award metadata to indicate funding entities. And we have publisher metadata as well, indicating in this case the name of the repository that is responsible for publishing a given data set. So all of this structured metadata built with open and interoperable persistent identifiers helps to establish really important relationships between different types of outputs and entities, building out a rich graph of knowledge and insights that can be leveraged by anyone, by any system, by any institution, by initiatives such as the ones that we have seen presented prior to this talk today. So again, echoing Joy, it's all connected. And credit to one of my colleagues, Kelly Stathis, for this colorful diagram. And as a result of how this metadata and how these persistent identifiers can be built up and connected, DataCite metadata becomes this rich network of information and connections that can be queried for further insights and discoveries and harvested in downstream systems and services. So what I'm showing here on the slide is just a graphic representation of some of the metadata examples that we previously saw, showing how it can be all brought together to visualize connections and trends and information about what is happening in the big picture of research. So this has been my very brief tour of how ROR and DataCite metadata and identifiers work together and can be leveraged together to yield powerful insights about research. I really hope this has been informative and useful to all of you, and I look forward to your questions right now, or as a follow-up, you can contact me at the email below. So thank you again.